just finished reading the first 10 chapters of The Cruel Prince. So I'm about 88 pages in, and honestly, I'm really into it. I feel like the beginning, like first 50 pages or so, were just all about setting up the context and the world. It's definitely very descriptive, so I'm just really imagining it all, trying to piece the world together. Basically, it takes place in the world of fairy, and that's like a magical world that it says beside the mortal world and also below the mortal world, and it's filled with all these different magical creatures. So basically, the main character Jude, she has a twin sister named Taryn and an older sister named Vivian, and they all get sucked into the world of fairy. And while they're there, you just basically see that Jude is like an outcast. Not just Jude and her sisters, because they're mortal, right? Not Vivian, but Jude and her twin sister. Yeah, so I was feeling very angry and annoyed as I was reading it, because the cruel prince is just so cruel and evil. But what I really like about Jude is that she refuses to back down from him. And so for me, each time I'm like, yeah, like, get it, girl. Like, I feel for you. Like, let's do this, you know? Her twin sister's like, come on, just like back down. Just tell him he wins. But she refuses to. And I like that. And I think that's what's going to make the story interesting, you know? I'm really excited to see what happens with that whole dynamic, because, yeah, I think there's supposed to be like romance in these books too. And I don't know exactly who it's between yet. It's hard to tell. But could be between Carden and Jude, you know, maybe it's like an enemies to lovers thing. You guys probably already know this, but I don't know anything about these books, so I'm going in fresh. So it's been many hours since the last time we talked, and since then, I haven't read too much more, but I did have about an hour before I started making dinner. So last time I talked to you guys, I was at the end of chapter 10. And then now I'm about to start chapter 14. Honestly, it's so pretty, each chapter. I love the little drawings because they're definitely very fantastical and whimsical. So far, I am into the book. I feel like there's gonna be like political conflicts for the throne. It can be kind of dark. Like when they bully her, like they're really bullying her, you know? So I'm kind of like, I don't love those parts, but at the same time, it does make it more real and intense. One of the things that I'm not liking about the book so far, the main character clearly feels like such an outsider in fairy, and she's trying so hard to fit in. Her biggest goal right now is not to give control to other people, not to be controlled by them, because she has no magical powers, whereas everyone else does. The decisions that she's making are all to try to get herself to be protected, to have control over herself, to become more powerful. And I understand that because the book is really showing me where that desire is coming from. But I really think it's pushing her to make certain decisions, maybe hastily. And I don't know how it's gonna come to bite her in the butt later, but I feel like it will, because, you know, she is compromising certain things for the sake of this protection and safety, you know? And also I'm realizing that some characters aren't what they seem to be. Like, for example, the cruel prince I was talking about and how he really is cruel. You see a little bit more backstory to him and see why he's the way that he is. So in that sense, you kind of feel a little bit more sympathetic towards him, and I'm sure that more will come out. So yeah, those are my thoughts so far. I just feel anxious for the main character because I feel like she thinks that she's making the right decisions, but in reality, she's still very vulnerable, in my opinion. So yeah, we'll see where the story goes. Now let's get back to The Cruel Prince. It's getting so intense. There's a lot of killing involved. It just took a huge turn that I did not expect, or maybe I kind of expected, but I didn't expect it to play out this way. I'm just shocked. This book is split into 2 books. So I finished book 1. I think there's about 125 pages of book 2. I'll give you one thing. It's intense and there's a lot of action. So if you like that, you might like this. But yeah, I don't know if I'm in love with the story, but I do hear that it gets better as the series goes on. So I mean, yeah, if there's only 125 pages left, I feel like I could finish it today. I'm just like mind blown as I'm reading this, like one thing after another. I'm like, sheesh. I don't know how to feel about all this. Okay, on to book 2. So it's another day, and I wanted to talk a little bit about The Wicked King, which I got about halfway through to last night. So I did share my thoughts about The Cruel Prince and how overall I just thought it was a pretty average read. I didn't really understand what the hype was about from that book because I felt like the pacing wasn't as good for me. I wasn't in love with any of the characters or the storyline or anything. And so I wasn't sure how I would feel about this one. But a lot of people say that they like this one and the third one, The Queen of Nothing, a lot more. So yeah, now that I'm halfway through, I will say I definitely do like it more. I think the pacing in this book is a lot better and it's very engaging. I'm definitely excited to get back into it, and I feel like the pages are just flying by. The first book, it was more about the main character Jude trying to get power because she felt so weak and vulnerable, and she was bullied a lot and just kind of kicked around for being mortal while living in fairy, right? And that one was kind of introducing a lot of the characters, trying to set the motive behind her actions and just setting the stage. But this one is a lot more interesting because now that she acquired that position of power, which for me, one of my issues with the first book was that I felt like it was almost too easy. Like all of a sudden, you know, this mortal girl who's being bullied and doesn't really have any powers is just essentially becomes one of the most powerful people in the kingdom. And so now that she's in that position, this one's interesting because it's all about her trying to keep and maintain that power. So there's a part of me that's a little always like anxious for her as I'm reading it because you never know what's gonna happen. It even says on the back that there's someone close to her that is going to betray her. Just a lot of things going on that you don't know about. There's definitely a lot of politics. So in the first like 100 pages or so, I felt like there were a lot of politics involved, which at first I was kind of like, I don't know if it's my thing. But one thing I will note is there's definitely like an enemies to lovers kind of trope going on. You can barely tell in the first book. Like in that one, you're not even sure what's gonna happen. I mean, kind of towards the end, you do see a glimpse of it between the two, I guess, like main characters. But then in this one, it's definitely the subplot, meaning it's not the main point of the story at all. Like in the first 150 pages that I've read through, there's like one significant scene that's more romance. And I'm actually really excited to see how that relationship unfolds as well. So yeah, I'm just excited overall to... Okay, could you please stop?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm excited to keep reading this. I think I could finish it today. And I will catch up with you guys again after. So I just finished The Wicked King and my heart is racing. The way that it ended was so shocking. I never could have guessed it, and I don't know if I'm even fully recovered from it. All I know is I have to read the next one now to figure out what happens, but oh my gosh, in this book, there's seriously so much betrayal, and you can't trust anybody, like actually, it's even your own family, which is so sad. And I just felt so bad for the main character, Jude, like the whole time, because I feel like at the core of everything that she does and just what she wants is this desire to belong and to not be weak, right? To have control and power, because she's constantly being taken advantage of, manipulated, treated like trash. It's not that she's this amazing character either that doesn't do anything bad, but it's just sad because it really feels like she's all alone and she has no one to turn to, no one to help her. And like the whole like romance in it, which again is not even a big part of the story, it's just kind of like a small like subplot. It's enemies to lover, but it's shocking because it's like they're true enemies. Like you can't ever let your guard down basically because you don't know what's gonna happen. If I was Jude, I'd be so discouraged. I just want to like give up. But obviously that's not what's gonna happen because there's a third one, right? It's insane. Like there's so much betrayal, so much backstabbing, killing, politics, and yeah, but it's getting good. Like I'm hooked. I cannot believe it ended that way, but I'm not going to spoil anything because I feel like you need to read it for yourself. Yeah, I think I'm going to start this one now. I probably won't finish it today, but yeah, my heart is still racing. Like I need to hurry up and get to this. It's definitely getting better, I will say. Like the first one was average. It was kind of like, it was just fine. The second one I enjoyed a lot more and it definitely got more intense. The stakes got higher for sure. So, I mean, it's all going down here, but what I'm really waiting for is this like vengeance, you know, and redemption. Like I need to feel that satisfying feeling and I haven't been getting it yet. It's just been getting worse and worse and more intense and just twists and turns that you can't expect. But in this one, see, I understand these titles now that I'm like reading the books. So I finished The Queen of Nothing, and I know I didn't really talk to you guys too much about it while I was reading it, but I pretty much read it in 2 sittings. I started last night and I was getting really into it, so I was reading it even when I was in bed. And then today I went to a cafe and then I finished it there. And honestly, it didn't take me long to get through because I was super into it. And I will say that this one is definitely my favorite out of all 3 of them. I felt like the author did such a good job tying everything in together and ending the story, but in a way that was really engaging, but also really threw me off guard because I didn't know what to expect at all. And with these books, you know that nothing is gonna have a happy ending until the very end, you know? There's always gonna be another trick, another scheme, another twist of events, and that's exactly how it was with this one as well. So there's a part of you that it's like as I'm reading, my heart is racing and I'm just like, I need to take a break, but I want to hurry up and know what happens. So I think that's what motivated me to hurry up and finish this. And I really enjoyed it. So here are the other 2. This one's the first one. And like I said before, I thought this one was pretty average. When I first read it, I didn't really get what the hype was about. I didn't think it was that fun. The story was fine. The characters were fine. I wasn't in love with any of it. And I see that it was really setting up the stage. It was really about giving the backstory for the main character, Jude, as well as all the other important characters. And so in a sense, it is important because it does give the backstory of just why she is the way that she is and why she wants power, shows her being very weak, vulnerable as a mortal in fairy, and how that really drives her ambition, and it pushes her to do things that maybe she normally wouldn't have, you know? But you kind of see, you start to ask yourself, okay, like how far will she go to get what she wants? And you kind of just see her journey of becoming more of this ruthless person who's really, you know, gonna do what she needs to do to get that power. And in this book, she does get that power, right? This one is nerve-wracking because once she has that power, now she has to maintain it. And because of that, I feel like as I was reading it, I was always anxious for her and people are constantly trying to get her. I felt like she just needed to be looking over her shoulder at all times. So there was like a level of anxiety that I had as I was reading this. But it was definitely more fun because there was more action in it, more politics, and also the romance between Jude and Prince Carden, it was slowly starting to grow and evolve, even though of course it's still just a small portion of the book. It's definitely not the main story, but it is engaging. I was very invested in their relationship and I did want to see how it grew. It really takes the whole enemies to lovers trope to the next level. There's so much at stake and you never know if what they're doing is genuine or if it's just another trick, you know? So of course there's a part of me that's rooting for them. You want things to work out, but at the same time, you're fearful because can you really trust the other person? And that's how they are constantly feeling. Do they really like each other that much or are they willing to kind of use each other as pawns in like a greater scheme that they have for power, right? I had a lot of those kind of questions. Obviously, I wanted certainty. And the way that it ended was shocking. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's another trick. But it was crazy. It really got me. And so in this book, the way it starts, Jude is definitely being humbled. She starts off in a completely different place than in the other books. So it's almost like starting from ground zero, right? But no, that's not right. This one has so much action, obviously a lot of politics as the other ones do too. But I don't know, something about this was just more fun. There were some slow moments, but I would say for the most part, it really kept me on my toes. Like all the twists and turns that it took, I could not have expected. And that's what I really liked. In the end, it was very satisfying. I really liked the ending. I felt like all the pieces were kind of put back together. Everyone was accounted for. Everything was resolved in a way. And yeah, it was just, I think the way that it ended really satisfied me as a reader. So I really liked that. The romance in here is the most like, it reaches like its peak, if that makes sense. And I really liked that relationship between Jude and Carden by the end. And I also loved seeing just the way that they evolved over the course of all three of these books. I feel like there was definitely a lot of character development for them. So I would recommend reading all three of them because again, you kind of have to read all three to really appreciate it and really love it. I guess I would just say, if you're not a huge fan of like hardcore fantasy with fairies and magical creatures and fairyland and all these things, then maybe this wouldn't be your style. But if you do like fantasy and with a little bit of romance sprinkled in, then I think you'll really enjoy it because I thought it was really fun and worth the read in the end. So yeah, I'd give this one 3 stars out of 5. I'd give this one 4 stars out of 5, and then this one probably 5 because it was my favorite. But yeah, overall would highly recommend. And thank you guys so much for joining me on this reading vlog. I felt like I was able to get through these pretty quickly and I think you will be able to too. So if those books sound interesting to you, then I hope you will also give them a read. And if you've already read them, then let me know what you thought. And I will see you again in my next video.